Hello and welcome to the Blood Reds Morning Bulletin. I'm joined by my fellow Liverpool.com writer Andrew Beasley, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Jude Bellingham, much to everyone's surprise, I think. Recently, there was a report about Dortmund setting a price tag of around 150 million euros for Bellingham next summer, although they're hoping that he may even extend on his current deal at the moment, and they're not that keen to let him go, as you can imagine, by the price tag. But Andrew, what do you make of those reports? How reliable do you think they are, and how much of an obstacle would that be for Liverpool now?
Well, I assume that the figures quoted are sort of genuine. You can normally rely on the Athletic for that sort of thing to be accurate. They're not just sort of making it up as they go along or anything like that. I mean, it's probably not that different to what people would have expected. I think figures of 100 million were expected, sort of bandied around this summer. Clearly, he started this season well. If he has another good season, and also we've got the World Cup. I mean, the way that many of England's midfielders are playing, I mean, he might feature quite heavily at the World Cup. And if he has a good tournament, that inevitably adds to the value. So if we were talking about 100 million last year, for it to be around about 130 next year sort of doesn't seem that unreasonable a leap, as perhaps strange as that sounds when it's so much money. But yeah, if he has a good season and a good World Cup, that I could easily see them Dortmund asking for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think how much of an obstacle do you think that will be for Liverpool to pay that kind of fee? I mean, it would be unprecedented. I think even in world football, I think it would be close to a record fee. So, how do you think FSG would cough up the money, so to speak, and for a player who, let's be honest, he could probably play for another decade or if not more at Liverpool if Liverpool do sign him.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at it yesterday. If it was 150 million euros as quoted, that'd make him the third most expensive player of all time, put in between Mbappe and Coutinho. But it's interesting because obviously prices go up all the time. Again, looking at this for an article I did for the Echo yesterday, talking about sort of transfer inflation and things like that. And if you apply inflation to when Liverpool bought Andy Carroll, all the way back in 2011, but his fee would now be 149 million in sort of present day money. So having spent that, you think 131 for Bellingham sort of probably seems a bit more reasonable. Whether that shows from history that FSG will be willing to spend that money is obviously another issue. I think they could probably say they had their fingers burnt a little bit with the Carroll deal, because although he had a few good moments and winning goals in cup semi-finals and things, I mean, clearly the move didn't work out overall. And obviously then they had the money from Fernando Torres to basically reinvest, which you would assume there's not going to be any massive sales from Liverpool next summer. So it's perhaps not the best example, but it shows they have in the past, they've spent big money, so they may be willing to do so again. Particularly if they believe it is the right player. I suppose, arguably, perhaps the greater issue is that Liverpool are likely to need more than one midfielder next summer, maybe two or three. Keita, Milner, Oxlade-Chamberlain are all going to be out of contract. And as things stand, it's hard to see, just as we are now, it's hard to see any of them making a sort of sustained case this season that they deserve to be kept on at the club. Now, things can change. Maybe they will when they come back from injury, Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain. But I don't think anyone would be too surprised if all three players left Liverpool next summer. And if that is the case, would Liverpool be better served investing 50 million into three separate midfielders rather than 150 million euros in one Jude Bellingham, no matter how good he is? We've seen different instances in the past. Obviously, when they lost Suarez, they bought a lot of players in sort of lower price brackets, and it didn't really work out. And obviously, they've seen the success they can have by buying the right player, Van Dijk, Alisson being the obvious examples for big money. So there's a lot of things to consider. I would say I don't think it's beyond possible that they will spend that money, but obviously it's, even as good as he is, it's something of a gamble, because I think they'll need to find further money for further midfielders, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point because already we feel like we're a bit short on depth from midfielders. Obviously, Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain are not necessarily included in that because they are injured, and maybe we won't feel as much their absence. But James Milner, he's been playing a lot of games already this season, so his absence would certainly be felt. I think Kumar left in the comment section. Maybe Liverpool should look at alternatives like Ruben Neves and Declan Rice. Those are some interesting options, and I think there's a few others Liverpool could potentially look at who may be better money for value. And do you think that's probably the best route to go down on, considering there's so many midfielders that Liverpool would need to sort of replace next summer?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think I don't know the contract details for these guys and things like that, but I mean, I'm not sure they'd get. Obviously, they should be able to get Declan Rice for less than 130 million, but clearly West Ham are going to want a lot at the same time. So it's not like he would automatically be a cheap, or he would be a cheaper option, but not a cheap option. You wouldn't be surprised if they were going down the sort of maybe buying 350 million euro players to maybe look abroad, because they'll tend to get probably better value for their money that way. But you could imagine Declan Rice, I think, would be a pretty good signing, I think. But would he be cheap enough to sort of to not bother with Bellingham, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of mixed on the two. I think they're both talented players. Although if I could have the choice, I'd absolutely choose Bellingham all day. I think so. It is a difficult one. I think as well, though. I I think this new report about the kind of money that Dortmund are looking for, the fact that they're sort of keen on extending his deal. Obviously, we've had a little bit of an inkling that Bellingham may favour Liverpool. He's spoken about it in the past, a few little hints here and there. But even if that is the player's preference, with the kind of money that we're talking about, if a Manchester City comes in and is able to pay that up front, offer a more favourable contract as well to Bellingham. I think Real Madrid are also being talked about as a potential team who are interested in him. It is really difficult for Liverpool to compete with those kind of teams, isn't it?
Yeah, it possibly is. I mean, as you say, it sort of depends how keen he is to move to Liverpool. We can read sort of little bits and things he says, but obviously he'll know the true picture. I mean, if the Capology wages website is to be believed, he's only on about 27,000 a week at the moment. I say only, like I wouldn't love that. But Liverpool could offer him 6 times that, to sort of 150 grand a week, let's say, for argument's sake. But Manchester City or Real Madrid probably go to 8 times that, or maybe more. But from what you can see and read about him, I mean, he seems like a sensible guy. Like, I don't think money will be the determining factor in the move for him, because wherever he goes, he's going to be earning. He'll immediately become one of the top earners in the Premier League or La Liga or whatever, I think. But obviously, that does add into the sort of financial package. I mean, anyone who signs him will want to give him sort of a 5-year deal. So if you're paying him sort of 7.5 million a year, let's say 150 grand a week, times that by 5, you're up to about 40 mil on top of your 130 mil that you might have to spend to get him. But of course, with that fee, it can work both ways. I mean, just because Dortmund are asking for that, if he says he wants to leave, and Liverpool offer 100 million, just plucking a figure from the sky, maybe they'll have to accept. And we've obviously seen as well with the Nunez deal. I mean, it goes down as a 100 million deal, but it's 75 million plus 25 million in add-ons. And obviously you hope that the add-ons are met because it means he's been successful, the team has been successful. But maybe Liverpool will be looking to structure something similar with Bellingham, where they say, well, we'll give you 100 million as the upfront fee, and maybe 30 million will be the add-ons, and then it sort of seems more affordable that way. If you sort of, accounting tricks or whatever to sort of try and get the deal done. I mean, clearly this is going to run throughout this season, but it is interesting to sort of get what appears to be a realistic sort of price, and then it's up to the money men at Liverpool to sort of think, can they figure that out? I mean, as we've said, it's an enormous deal. But I don't think that automatically means it's not one they're going to do. Just that it's It's a big commitment.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see which direction Liverpool will go towards in the end, whether they go for a sort of cheaper alternatives, maybe get in 2 or 3, or go all out for Bellingham. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this a lot more in the coming months and coming months and weeks ahead. So make sure to tune in. We'll be talking a lot more about Liverpool as well today on Blood Red and Liverpool.com as well. So do check all of that out. Thanks, Andrew, for joining me, and thanks everyone for listening as well.